Too many people in America fear their government, and the government is being run by too many powerful agencies like the IRS and others. I think it's time that people take the country back through their representative government.
Hey, Mr. Politician, living on that hill, living in that life of luxury on we the people's bill. Don't have a clue how the other half lives, and that is a shame. It's time to stop the tyranny. You keep pushing through your bills, going for revolution, going for it now. It's time to save our Constitution while we still got the guns in our hands.
Hi, and welcome to Freedom TV. This is the new look of Freedom TV, and we're going to be doing some exciting things over the next 13 weeks. This is going to be more of a program of creating the revolution one solution at a time. We're going to have some very unusual and different points of view that you probably haven't seen before, even on the non-mainstream media. One of the purposes for this program is to empower people and give them more of an opportunity to practice some self-reliance and also some initiative and innovation in different areas. The things that we're going to be looking at are very innovative in some respects and also more or less outside the box of normal solutions that you might think of. We're also going to be having some what you'd call public service announcements, or little short messages that alert you to both things that are coming up and also some of the movies and organizations and ideas and perspectives that you've probably not seen anywhere else. And so you'll get an opportunity to see both our shorts, and we're going to be having specific segments. One of the segments we're going to be having is called Surviving and Thriving, and that has to do with more or less learning how to survive in the wilderness and learning how to be resourceful with the things you have. Now we're going to show a short from Chris Janowski and the Wilderness Survival Institute. These are brought to you courtesy of the Militia of Montana, and they're very entertaining as well as informative.
The very first thing that you're going to want to address in a survival situation is going to be your attitude. You have got to have a good and positive attitude. This goes for everything you do in life, but especially in a life and death survival situation. You might be down in a very, very bad spot. If you're not used to the wilderness, you could be a little afraid of what's going on. You're all alone. You don't know where you are. Maybe everybody's dead around you. You're alive. You're not injured. And the last part is a pretty good thing. You're alive and you're not injured. That's something to be thankful for and something to have a positive attitude about. Next thing you got to do is stay alive, and you want to be very positive here. Stupid mistakes will kill you. You make the right decisions and you're going to stay alive. It's no different than being any place else. All you got to do is have the knowledge and this positive attitude. There's lots of ways to achieve this positive attitude, even though you're in a bad situation. If you're a religious person, it might not hurt to say a prayer. This would be a good time for it. You're pretty close to dying. If not, you might want to think about breathing. Breathing is another good exercise. You want to breathe deeply and breathe slowly. You don't want to be breathing very fast because you're upset and nervous and running around in circles, screaming and shouting, nothing's happening. This is not a good thing. You're hyperventilating. You're taking in too much CO2. You're not letting it out again. You're taking it in. You're not letting it out. This is a very bad thing. This actually is what triggers the fight or flight reaction. And you don't want to become in this situation because it's going to control you. Breathe slowly. Think about a good thought. Think about something you really enjoy, something you like. And just sit down and think for a second. Regroup. Get your thoughts together. You're going to be okay. You've got your attitude adjusted. This is very, very, very important. We've got a wind going here, which is not going to help my attitude. But we're going to cope with this. Next thing you want to do is be extremely resourceful. You've got to be resourceful. Anything you've got on you is probably a survival tool. And you should be, actually at this point, a little bit prepared for a situation like this. If not, the normal things you've got on you are probably survival tools. The most important tool that you've got, you'll always have with you. I don't care who you are and who I'm talking to now. You're going to have this tool with you, and that's your brain. That is your edge, your brain. Every one of you out there is going to be able to think of something that I don't think about. You've got to have this brain working for you. You've got this brain, and it's going to happen. So use your brain. Don't let your brain be clouded by all kinds of terrible thoughts that might happen. Let your brain start working. Let's start making things happen properly. Very important. If you get this far through a survival situation, you're going to go all the way. You're going to come out of this looking good. This is the most important part, this first section. Your attitude, your resourcefulness, and using your brain. Things you don't want to do. If you're not using your brain, every year people are found that we're in a lost situation and they're running around in the forest at night. What happens when you run around in the forest at night is nothing productive, but what you do, you poke your eyes out on branches. Now you've really created a problem for yourself. If it's not bad enough that you're in this situation, now you're blind. Now you've really got a hopeless situation going on for yourself. Don't run around in the forest at night. Don't run around in the forest, period. You want to check your resources. Once you've adjusted your attitude, sit down for a second, meditate, say a prayer, breathe properly, do whatever you've got to do, smoke a nice Nicaraguan cigar, which I like to do, whatever you've got to do. But just do this, calm down, and check over every resource that you might have.
Hi, and welcome back to Freedom TV. We've got some other segments in our show for you that I think you're going to find interesting, but one of the things we're going to be doing is promoting specific events or get-togethers that are happening that we think are activities and possibilities for people to have a say in changing things that are going on. One of these is happening April 12th. And it's going to be happening in downtown Portland in the park blocks. The information as to the location and the time is below, and you can have an opportunity to copy that down. What this is for is to follow the human rights torch that's traveling around the United States. This is a torch that gives a voice to the people who have been persecuted in China, and also it offers an opportunity for people to say that they would like to boycott what's going to be going on in China this summer. This is going to be the Human Rights Torch Relay that will be traveling around the United States and coming here to Portland on April 12th. This will be your opportunity to get out and make a statement about how you feel about human rights violations in China, and also if you think that the event this summer should be boycotted. So again, April 12th in the park blocks in downtown Portland. Another part of our show, a major part of our show, is going to be having a specific guest each week. And this particular person will be focused primarily on things that have a plan of action, the how-to, rather than what's wrong and who's to blame. This is more about how can we fix the situation. So these are going to be people, organizations, and actually working ideas. One of the people that we're going to be having in 2 weeks is Catherine Hickok from the Cascade Policy Institute, who is the person who handles Children's Scholarship Fund here in the Northwest. Catherine will be talking about the fund and who it services, and also where they get their money from. This money comes from private donations, and every dollar that is donated to Children's Scholarship Fund is matched by the Walton Foundation dollar for dollar. So it's an interesting way of getting a choice in education for children. Now we're going to have a little short that tells you a bit about Children's Scholarship Fund.
It began as a local program in our nation's capital. In the fall of 1997, a man with a quarter-century commitment to helping children in need, Wall Street entrepreneur Ted Forstmann and John Walton, announced they would provide scholarships so 1,000 Washington school children could attend school of their choice. When over 8,000 applications rushed in for the 1,000 available scholarships, Ted Forstmann saw America's need for educational choice.
Poor kids have a very rough deal with respect to education because the system really isn't working.
We simply as a country cannot afford to split our country into haves and have-nots.
The Children's Scholarship Fund was created
to help low-income families send their children to
private or parochial schools.
The new program is being funded by a lot of private money.
An experimental program to challenge public education.
It's the latest example of a commitment to those who need help most.
The goal should be to educate the public.
It really is extraordinary that you and Mr. Walton would take $100 million of your own money.
Seemed a little weird, you know, this old white fella's coming around talking about he want to give some money to some inner city children. What's this man thinking about?
You weren't a deprived Negro child, we know.
What do you get back from it?
As you save a life, you save the world.
It's much more than an investment in money. It is an investment in taking a risk and a chance on competition and education.
An investment in a child has a guaranteed return.
There has to be an alternative if you don't have money. Sure, if you got money, you can buy yourself out, you can go to private school, but we have to do something for all of those that don't have the money.
I see this as giving poor people an opportunity to participate where they historically have been excluded.
Order, decency, hard work, fairness, all the things that would make public education work.
The Children's Scholarship Fund is giving children a chance and giving families a choice.
It gives them the choice that so many Americans have.
I think that these scholarships are going to be of great assistance to a lot of people.
I'm interested in getting to a position quickly where every single child in this country has an equal opportunity at a decent education.
When I grow up, I want to be a doctor.
And my heart is filled with pain.
I want to be a teacher.
Smile I had up on my face is gone.
A lawyer.
Can't see the sunshine from the rain.
A scientist.
When I think of you.
Children should not have to go to school in fear. Will my book bag be taken?
Then the round's all right with me.
I didn't like it. The choice was picked by the system.
No, it's just one thought of you.
She was floundering, and she was losing.
And I know it's gonna be.
We sacrificed a little bit and we just transferred them to private school.
Lovely day, lovely day, lovely day, lovely day.
The scholarship was the very best choice I have ever made.
They're pushed, they're motivated by their teachers, by their peers.
When it comes to the education of our children, we have to be the best consumer.
Children deserve the best. They deserve the best. Not mediocre. They deserve the best.
One of the interviews we're going to be having in the future is with the representative from LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. These folks are former police personnel who have come out against the war on drugs. Now, I have an introductory little video for you in regard to LEAPs to give you kind of an introduction to who they are and what they do.
Bizarre, Jack, is that we have these private prisons that have now hired lobbyists to go get minimum mandatories. And
in the spring of 2002, 5 current and former ranking police officers got together to talk about the war on drugs and its impact on their fellow officers. Over the next 3 years, this group of 5 swelled to 500 as current and former DEA agents, police chiefs, judges, and prosecutors joined their ranks. Now they've gone public, and what they're saying is shaking the drug war establishment to its roots.
I think one of the things that I need to confront with respect to my own behavior is that even though for many years I have believed that this drug war is not just nonsense but harmful financially and psychically and spiritually, it's just an immoral proposition. I should have been saying much more of that much more strenuously.
When I joined New Jersey State Police in 1964, we had 1,700 troopers. We had a 7-man narcotic unit, always seemed perfectly adequate for the job we needed to do. And then overnight, as a result of these bills of Mr. Nixon's, we went from a 7-man unit to a 76-person narcotic bureau. Well, what they decided to do was they took undercover people like myself, and they targeted us against small friendship groups of young people in college, like yourselves. And as soon as we got in there and became their friends, come a Friday night, somebody would say, hey, school's out, we're off work, anyone want to get high? And of course, if nobody said that, that was our job. If somebody simply passed a marijuana cigarette to me, they became a drug dealer. That hand-held marijuana cigarette would send that person to jail for 7 years. Over 1,000 young people went to jail as a direct result of what I did out there as one undercover agent, something that I'm certainly not proud of today.
When I was a police officer in 1966, I used to enjoy kicking in doors and going after, a half a baggie of marijuana or a seed, even for that matter. It was a felony. We were told in the academy that that was a big pinch. It was really important to collect those numbers, and I did it. I did it with zeal. I did it with a lot of vigor. But after about 14 months on the job, having had a principal prosecutor slap me upside the head and question my understanding of the Constitution, I began to understand that the 17 or the 19-year-old kid I had in the backseat of my police car was not a criminal at all.
I'm a retired police captain. I spent 20 years in law enforcement working for the town of Tonawanda Police Department. Now, the only way this war on drugs is going to be won is if we make drugs go away. We got to win the war. The enemy's got to be gone. We're making a war on drugs. Drugs are the enemy. We got to make them go away. Show of hands. How many people in this room believe we can do anything to make drugs go away? No more heroin, no more crack cocaine, no more marijuana. Drugs are gone. Let's move on to the next problem. Okay, so we can't make these drugs go away, so this war on drugs really isn't a good title. Makes us feel good. Going to win the war. But it really doesn't describe the policy. I got another word that describes the policy perfectly. Prohibition. How many people got a picture of a big black car, Chicago, Al Capone, and a Thompson submachine gun in their hand? Anybody? How many other thought when you hear that word, that doesn't work? Isn't that what we learned in this country between 1920 and 1933? Prohibition doesn't work. That's why we ended it. Well, that is a description of the policy that we live under today in America when it comes to drugs.
Under Prohibition, we have given the right to the criminal of who's going to supply the drugs to the United States, what kind of drugs are going to be supplied, how much those drugs are going to cost, how they're going to be produced, how potent they're going to be, what age levels they're going to sell to, and where they're going to sell. And if they decide they're going to sell to 10-year-old kids on our playgrounds, by God, that's where they'll be sold.
The thing that gets me is we don't learn a thing from history. We want our institutions to be pure and not corrupt, but yet we do the things that we know is going to corrupt them.
And the way I like to tell the story is now you came into this thing a bright-eyed, shiny young recruit. You're a police officer 4 or 5 years. You've seen the wasted energy that you spent on this drug war, and now you're standing in a motel room where the drug arrest had just been made. Laying on the bed is $100 and some thousand, hasn't been counted yet in cash. In your back pocket is a $3,800 bill from the plumber that you didn't know how you were going to pay, and it doesn't make any difference anyways. And you take your first taste, and then you're gone.
After I retired from New Jersey State Police, I helped co-found this group called LEAP, or Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. It's a group that was created to give voice to all the current and former members of law enforcement who feel the war on drugs is not only a dismal failure, but it's a terribly destructive policy.
I remember just going in, taking a small area of my community and for all practical purposes, cordoning it off, completely cleaning it up, using some pretty sophisticated techniques, trampling all over the edges of the Constitution to do so. But I mean, really cleaning it up and getting all of the dope dealers out of there. And to my dismay, 90 days later, I had a Haitian group to move in from downstate. I had the Miami boys to move in from Jacksonville, and they were shooting machine guns and beating people mercilessly, and I wanted my old dope dealers back.
We didn't have an illegal drug in this country until 1914, when we passed the Harrison Anti-Drug Act. Just before 1914, the government said, we have 1.3% of the people in this country addicted to drugs. God, we can't have that, right? So they passed this law. Now you fast forward 56 years to 1970, the beginning of the war on drugs. In 1970, the government said 1.3% of the population is addicted to drugs. Can't have it, got to start a war on drugs. 36 years later and $1 trillion and all these lives lost, 1.3% of the population is addicted to drugs.
Have you ever woke up in the morning, turn on your TV set, and you see this wonderful picture on your TV? There'll be a big, long table. On one end of the table, there'll be a big pile of money. On the other end of the table, a big pile of guns and drugs. And out in front of the table, there will be a district attorney. And he'll relate to you about the 2-year investigation that culminated last night when we went out with 68 warrants. Have you seen that story? More than once? Yeah, a whole bunch of times. Huh? And you're going to keep seeing it too, over and over again. Let me give you an example. These 3 people here are my gang. I'm the drug kingpin. Okay? These 3 are running my street crew for me. They're taking care of business out there. I'm collecting the bucks. Things are fine. I'm the one with all the bling bling. They're basically paying rent with the money they make, but hey, life's like that. All of a sudden I get slammed with that 25-year to life. I'm out of the picture. Now, how do these 3 wonderful people figure out who takes it over? Well, you get your attorneys, you get your attorneys, you get your attorneys, you get the contracts together, right? You look them over and you see, right? Isn't that how it works? No. You get your people, you get your people, you get your people, and you fight it out on the streets. And here's the kicker. When the violence stops, when the shootings stop, you know what we know then? One of these people is in charge now. And you know what we start doing? The 2-year investigation. So in 2 years, we can have that wonderful television program with the big pile of guns, the big pile of drugs, the big pile of money. We can do it all over again. But you know what never changes? The availability of the drugs on the street.
My name is Minch Lewis. I was city auditor in the city of Syracuse, New York. And at the end of my term, one of the last things that we did was a review of the cost of police services in the city. And that led us to discover that most of the money that the city spent for police services was related to drug-related arrests.
You arrest a rapist, the rape stop. You arrest a bank robber, the bank robbery stop. What have you ever seen stop when you arrest a drug dealer or a drug user? Nothing. Nothing changes. Nothing changes.
And the question really was, is that effective? Is that doing anything? Is that giving people any greater feeling of security when we're spending approximately $10 million a year to make these arrests? And the answer that we found after talking to people was no. This is not providing additional security. This is not giving them any greater feeling of belonging or security in their neighborhood. And if it isn't, then There must be a better alternative.
Remove the profit motive. If you remove the profit motive, you can do away with almost all these problems. And how do you do that? Simple. You end prohibition, which can only mean one thing: legalize drugs. Legalize all drugs. Legalize them so that we can control them and regulate them and keep them out of the hands of our children.
Drug legalization is not to be construed as an approach to our drug problem. Drug legalization is about our crime and violence problem. Once we legalize drugs, we gotta then buckle down and start dealing with our drug problem. And that's not gonna be easy, but it's something we can do. 50% of the adult cigarette smokers in this society have quit in the last 10 years. That's an amazing success story when you're talking about the most addictive drug we know of, nicotine. It's an amazing success story. How did we accomplish this wonderful success story? We educated. Really got the word out there to people about how dangerous this substance was.
Let me tell you about the outcomes of legalization. First outcome is that 1.6 million less people would have to be arrested here every year, right? Which means something very important monetarily to everyone in this room, everyone in this state, which is in deficit spending like all the other states, everyone in this country, because this is what we spend every year to fight this war. $69 billion down the rat hole. Useless.
If we really want to improve our urban neighborhoods, the most important thing that we could do, the single most important thing that we could do, is end the war on drugs.
South Africa in 1993, under apartheid, they incarcerated 851 black males per 100,000. In the United States in 2004, under prohibition, we incarcerate at the rate of 4,919 black males per 100,000. Now, how anybody could look at this and not see institutionalized racism, I don't know.
I think the drug war has been arguably the single most devastating, dysfunctional, harmful social policy since slavery. I think it has devastated our communities. I think it has ruined the lives of so many of our fellow citizens. I believe that it has cost the national, the state, and the local treasury obscene amounts of money, and for what?
Starting next week, we're going to have an interview with John Locke from Columbia Coin. He's going to be talking to us about hard currency, or silver and gold. He's going to be talking to us about what it is, what it isn't, and he's also going to be explaining a bit of information about how do you get started, or what are some of the considerations about buying gold and silver. So look for John Locke and a discussion on silver and gold coming next week, this time and this station. Now, in regard to some of the political stances that this program takes, we'd like to offer the next short called 7.65% Solution. This is an idea, an alternative idea to continuing down the road of Social Security that we're currently on. 7.65% Solution.
They tell me I was born with it.
They say I'm gonna die with it.
They promised my children would be free of it.
It's only gotten worse.
Today's young Americans have inherited the single greatest financial debt in history, over $13 trillion in unfunded Social Security benefits. In 1950, the fatally flawed system of Social Security functioned with a ratio of 16 workers supporting each retiree. Today, there are 3. For our children, there will only be 2.
We will be the first generation to leave the children and the grandchildren worse off than any other generation.
These poor little innocent children coming into the world now shouldn't have to pay off our debts.
We're going to be basically living off the backs of our children and our grandchildren forever, and they're going to be paying into a system that's going to have absolutely nothing left for them.
But there are some things that you don't compromise, and I think the children's future is one of those things.
Instead of preparing for this long-predicted crisis, Congress has spent more than 20 years raiding the Social Security surplus to pay for other government programs and pork barrel projects.
I'm sick to death of people stealing my money, and that is how I look at it. I look as if that I've been stolen from.
The money is not there, it's being taken, and come 15 years from now, we are going to have a serious deficit.
Well, I don't want future generations to be blaming me for the debt that's going to be heaped upon them.
We need to do it for our children's sake. We would not rob from their savings account on a day-to-day basis to buy the groceries, but that's basically what we're doing with Social Security right now.
While Congress continues to ignore the impending Social Security crisis, the burden continues to grow. Every month that goes by without a solution, the system goes $50 billion deeper into debt.
If we don't do something immediately, these problems are going to be almost insurmountable.
We can't fix it 10 years from now, it'll be worse. We can't fix it 15 years from now, it'll be even worse than that.
I'm hoping it's not too late for my generation to do something to help my children and my grandchildren, but I fear that if we don't do something quickly, it is too late to help them.
What if there was a courageous solution to the Social Security crisis? Would Washington even listen?
I will listen to any proposal that might be put up.
I would listen because it affects my children and my grandchildren's future.
I promise you that I will listen.
I can assure you I'll be listening.
We'll listen. We will listen.
I will be very willing to listen to any solution to solve these problems with Social Security. I think it's important for our future, I think it's important for our children's future, and it's important for the health and well-being of our country.
What if we chose our legislators by cockfighting?
I don't even know why you're here.
He's not going to meet with you. Your bird is too tiny.
If we let special interest money determine our elections, we might as well switch to cockfighting.
This little story is one that I had the privilege of telling to General Secretary Gorbachev, and he laughed. Его спрашивают, ну что, убил Горбачева?
So they asked him, did you kill Gorbachev?
Он говорит, туда еще больше очередь.
He said, no, there's a longer line there.
Ну, я начну в течение последующих 7 лет есть нам будет нечего, кроме говна.
Why do you wish to leave Russia?
It's the secret police. The Central Committee have ordered them to arrest all elephants.
But you aren't elephants.
Try telling that to the secret police.
Hey, where did you buy the toilet paper from?
I didn't buy it. I just got it back from the dry cleaner.
Hey! Wait there!
One housewife to another. I hear there'll be snow tomorrow. Well, I'm not queuing for that.
The Stasi asked us, what kind of jokes did you tell? And sooner or later, you have to admit something.
No fewer than 100,000 people were in prison for telling jokes.
It happened to me. It happened to me.
For 70 years, the Soviet army had been building their rockets and parading their hardware, so it was really difficult to predict that the power of ideas would win. Ideas would win.
these jokes, they did change something, and they changed something in people. They gave them courage. It was a way of standing up, of saying no.
One thing we'd like to remind you is that all of the content that we use in this show, we have received permission from the copyright owners to actually have it on the show. We always ask permission about anything that we use here on the show that we didn't actually produce. So you can be guaranteed that anything you see here, we have the permission of the copyright owner to show you. This program, Freedom TV, is designed to ask some very serious questions. But we're not just going to be asking the questions, we're going to actually solicit your input. And we want your input for real, not like the city wants it or some of the other governmental organizations. We actually want to hear what your ideas are about solutions. So we are going to have a component in the shows with a call-in, an opportunity for you to call in one day, of course, the day we go live on Sunday, and have a chance to make your statements about what solutions you see, or if you prefer to ask the guests whatever questions you'd like to. So we are going to have a regular call-in period. So since that's not possible to have call-ins today, we're going to offer some alternative views that give different stakeholders a voice. 3 things we're going to offer for you. The first one is called Indoctrinate You. It's about the opinions that you usually get in universities. Next, we're going to hear from my political favorite, Ron Paul, and the band Poker Face. This is the continued extension of the song that you hear as our logo coming in. And also, the third one, we're going to have a very short introduction to a movie called Mind Your Own Business, which gives you a very unusual perspective about environmentalism in Romania. So sit back, enjoy. You're going to have a lot of fun watching these.
Anything which is intimidating, which is going to poison the campus environment, can't be allowed.
Like joining a church. You have to be a believer. You have to have the right set of views.
We must preserve heterogeneity. Heterogeneity we like.
Rather than saying we're suppressing speech, let's say what we're doing is ending harassment. The problem then becomes, what is the definition of harassment?
If you're offended by it, that's implicitly considered harassment.
Who cares if you're offended? Why is that against the law now to offend someone?
This is hardly a marketplace of ideas. This is a monopoly.
They're quite ruthless about their desire for a kinder and gentler world.
We're working on a documentary film.
Call the campus police.
You need to leave or you're going to go to jail.
Well, how can I get an appointment if no one will return my requests?
You're welcome to call me.
Instead of calling you, can I just talk with you now?
No, I'm busy.
If a professor is comparing one of the students who took his class to Hitler and to suicide bombers, a student, by the way, from the Middle East, then I think that's a story.
They're afraid to give their viewpoint in class because they know it won't be tolerated.
If you're open-minded, you have to be this. If you're a good-hearted person, you have to be this.
They really believe that this is the only view any reasonable person could possibly hold.
I've been learning in geography class that gender is socially constructed.
I never knew that carbon chains had anything to do with politics, but they do. I don't know.
Why won't you say what's wrong? Why won't anyone believe your story? Why won't you say what's wrong? Why won't anyone believe your story? Why won't you wait? Don't wanna wait. Why won't you listen? Go ahead and speak. Why won't you wait? Don't wanna wait. Why won't you let go? Ready?
I'm politically liberal. Your average sort of mainstream Democrat doesn't necessarily believe this is really happening. I didn't really understand it was really happening.
The big buzzword on college campuses is diversity, diversity, diversity. We talk about diversity of skin color. We talk about having different ethnicities come to campus. The university is totally ignoring diversity of thought.
Too many people in America fear their government, and the government is being run by too many powerful agencies like the IRS and others. I think it's time the people take the country back through their representative government.
Hey, Mr. Politician, living on that hill, living in that life of luxury, on we the people's bill. Don't have a clue how the other half lives, and that is a shame. It's time to stop the tyranny. You keep pushing through your bills. Going for a revolution, going for it now. It's time to save our Constitution while we still got the guns in our hands. And there's a farmer who's starving on their land. Rancher tries to feed his cattle and sheep on we the people's land. Try and live as a free man. You'll find it is illegal anymore. Time to stop these thugs from stealing what's been got handed down. Going for a revolution. Going for it now. It's time to save our Constitution while we still got the guns in our hands. Now is the time to turn back the clock of the tyranny. For if we don't, then who will do it for ourselves? And how about our children? What kind of future will we leave them? And if we won't, we'll wake up slaves on the global plantation. Calling for a revolution. Calling for it now. It's time to save our Constitution while we still got the guns in our hands. Calling for a revolution. Calling for it now. It's time to save our Constitution while we still got the guns in our hands. While we still got the guns. Still got the guns in our hands.
A dangerous force is denying the dreams of the world's poorest people. There is a powerful group telling the world's poor how to work, how to live, and even how to think. The first film that takes you to the dark side of the environmental movement.
The environmentalists really are against growth. They think that what people need is to keep in their traditional ways of life. They should be kept as happy peasants.
Y la gente dice, bueno, como les digo, no quiere trabajar.
Powerful environmental groups have descended on impoverished villages. Around the world, small towns teeter on the verge of economic extinction.
I know what I need. I need a job.
Often, a village's best hope is a new environmentally friendly mine that would bring jobs, development, and many of the basic human necessities that Westerners take for granted. But environmental lobbyists are campaigning to stop the mine. They claim it would destroy a town's charming way of life.
It's part of the charm of Russia, Montana, and this lifestyle.
The people who are against the project, they are rich people. They are not here, like us. We have to eat, we need jobs, and we have to work.
A continent away, activists use the same arguments.
I think the quaintness of Fort Dauphin, the small town feeling will certainly change.
But people in Fort Dauphin are very poor.
How do we perceive what is rich and what is poor? Who is rich and who is poor?
I bought this for about $35,000, which was a good price. I mean, it came with everything.
Western environmental lobbyists claim to represent the interests of the world's poorest people.
Well, I don't think they care about the poor. They're the biggest enemies of the poor.
What if everything you thought about the environmental movement was wrong?
Then they don't like people.
Elephant and donkey walking side by side, fighting over who's gonna take you for a ride. Dark horse gallops up to join the brawl. He's fighting for the people and his name is Ron Paul. He's the only candidate who speaks his mind and he knows he works for you. And that's why all the animals are trying to kick him out of the zoo. Well, you don't have to drive to the local zoo. You can watch all the monkeys on the TV news, talking in circles, hoping no one's seen the half-ton gorilla in the middle of the screen. 'Cause when the Ron Paul juggernaut comes to town, well, you know where to be found. 'Cause it's he's out who kick us out, who gave us out, who all around. Ron Paul. So all you fat cat zookeepers trying to rig the stage, don't taunt the tiger when he's in his cage. One day that tiger's gonna jump the wall, walk into a voting booth and vote for Ron Paul. Don't listen to the polls, say you just can't win, 'cause you know the fix is in. And if you wanna save your country, then you gotta put your 2 cents in. Ron Paul.
Hi, this is Freedom TV, and we hope you've enjoyed the show. And we're looking forward to seeing you next Sunday when we go live at 5. And you will be here, or we will hunt you down and make you sit in front of the camera and watch our show. No, we're not the socialists here. We're actually freedom-loving people. If you don't want to watch the show, fine. Now, if you liked what you saw, tell your friends. If you didn't like what you saw, tell your enemies. That way, no matter what happens, I'll be guaranteed of an audience next week. We'll see you next week at 5.
If you become lost, what you should do is stop and get control of those emotions. Take an inventory of what you've got to work with. Get organized and develop a plan of action that's going to get you and yours through this night safely. Without a survival kit, it's going to be very difficult to get control of your emotions. The mind just doesn't want to work well when it's consumed by fear. What you're most likely going to do is to continue to try to keep getting back to your vehicle, even though you have no idea where that's at. The goal of this video is to show you that a small survival kit can keep these nights from becoming life-threatening. Of all the tools that I stock in my survival kit, the one item that I use the most and place the highest value on is my knife. The knives that I've been carrying for years are the Leatherman Wave and the Swiss Army Huntsman knife. The one item that both of these have in common is a good saw blade on it. Almost everything that I do out here, everything that I manufacture, everything that you see in any of my films, were all manufactured with one of these two items. I place such a high importance on knives that I actually carry both of these with me. Of the two knives, I give the Leatherman Wave a little bit higher marks. The blades are much more accessible and they lock, and that's an important safety feature. One of the really cool tricks I learned when I was down in Panama from the instructors down there was how to split a piece of wood like this using your knife. Saw halfway through the wood and just give it a good wrap on a rock, and you've got a nice split piece of wood. The one survival skill that I can teach you, which I believe will have the greatest impact on keeping you alive out here, is fire. Since I began my career as a survival instructor in 1968, the one thing that has made fire starting both easy and 100% certain has been pitchwood. The dark veins that look like strips of lean bacon in this old fir stump are real good indicators that my fire starting efforts are going to be successful, regardless of the weather conditions. It will be my nose, however, that will tell me for sure. That pine sol odor that I detect, that's pure gold. My approach to starting fires hasn't changed in over 30 years. First, I form a V with 2 arm-sized pieces of wood. This gives my small fire the protection it needs from the wind. Second, I scrape a small pile of shavings directly from the handle of my fire starting tool, which I developed in 2004. By holding the top edge of the attached scraper at a 45-degree angle and applying firm downward strokes, I can easily produce some excellent tinder. Third, I place the ferrocerium rod, also known as mish metal, directly over the pile of tinder and press slowly and firmly downward. If I'm fortunate enough to have found a source of pitchwood nearby, I will add several thin shavings just to kick it up a notch, so that when I add my handful of small dead twigs, they will ignite even if they are slightly damp. I cannot stress enough the importance of preparing kindling ahead of time, especially in wet weather. Several gradually increasing sizes of kindling will make the difference between success and failure. In addition to being one of the most reliable fire starters on the planet, the SOS fire starter can also be used successfully by survivors who have been injured. The SOS fire starter can easily be used one-handed if you have a saw blade.
cry for my country, for the pain that it's been through. She's been made to suffer for the profit of a few. Storm clouds are forming, winds of change now touch our shores. Our hear forefathers are crying as the dream's been crucified. America, I show my love for thee with strength and loyalty. America.